All right, gentlemen, I want to do three things today. First of all, you have Lot goes off to Sodom, and then you have a world war. The world war starts on page 60. I want to do three things today. I want to get this world war here, get clear what happened here. So on page 60, towards the bottom of the page, it says, Vahibi be Amrophel melech Shinar. Amrophel is Nimrod. Page 60, two lines from the bottom. Vahibi be Amrophel melech Shinar. Aryoch melech Elosar, Kedar Lomer melchem, Asidol melech Goyim. You got four kings. And they wage war. Asu Mulchama is Bera melech Stom, is Birsha melech Amora. And there's no coincidence you see the word Ra by the king of Stone, or Russia by the king of Amora. Shin of melech Adma. Shin of is Sonei Aviv Sheba Shemayim. It comes from the word he hates God. Vishamever melech Tzvoim. Umelech Bela Hitzar. So you got a 4-on-5, a world war, the first world war in history. And they go through this war, and then the Torah says that they capture, they go through these enemies, and then if you skip down all the way towards the bottom of page 62. By the way, I just want to announce for the Torah anytime. Last time I announced that my email is Dovid was changed to Dovid T, as in terrible Kaplan, Dovid T Kaplan, but my original email has been restored. So it's Dovid B as in billionaire, Dovid billionaire Kaplan, Dovid B Kaplan. So that email is, well, listen, it's wishful thinking. The Powerball is $1.6 billion right now. I could cry. And not only that, when I find out that somebody wins it, I will cry. The Powerball is now $1.6 billion. All right, you don't get all of that. You only take home from that, if you take the whole lump payment, you only get about $800 million. Right? 800 million. I think I'm going to cry right now. That's the truth. So both emails are now working. Dovid B. Kaplan and Dovid, but the main one is Dovid B. Billionaire Kaplan. And I told the other guys I can now email myself back and forth, right? If it could keep me busy sending myself emails. So you have this 4-on-5 over here. You have a world war. And then in Pasuk, if you skip down to the bottom, Pasuk Yud Aleph, 6 lines from the bottom, after the 4 defeat the 5, and the 2 kings of Sodom run away. It says, Vayikchu es kol rechush Sodom va'amora. They take all the property of Sodom. Ves kol ochlam and all their food va'yelech. You're talking about a vast wealth that they take, because the men of Sodom was a very, very prosperous country, very prosperous region. And so they've taken away a tremendous amount of wealth that they've captured, that these 4 kings have captured. Vayikchu es Lot ves rechusho ben Achi Avram vayelechu v'hu yoshev v'stam. But they also capture Lot and his property, the nephew of Avraham Avinu, and they go. Now, Lot is a very interesting character over here. Lot made the decision to leave Avraham Avinu. He could have turned around and said, when Avraham Avinu said, hey, let's split up. Lot should have turned around and said, no, I want to stay with you. He never even tried. He just immediately said, yeah, let's go. Sometimes in life, you tell somebody, listen, you're getting a punishment. Most people would beg. No, please, at least try. No, Lot was more than happy to leave. What ends up happening to Lot? He loses his family. Half his family dies. He loses all his property later on when Sodom is overturned. Bad decision on Lot's part. Bad decision. Here, they capture all of Sodom, and then the Torah makes a point of saying, and they captured Lot. And then 3 lines from the bottom, Vayavo hapolit vayoged la'Avram, the refugee from the war, somebody escaped, and he comes back and tells Avram ha'ivri, who shochein beilo neimam emri achi eshko v'cheaner v'heim balei bris Avram. So he comes to tell Avram. The Medrash says that this was Og Melech HaBashan who escaped, and he purposely told Avram Avinu because he knew that Avram would get into the war, hopefully get killed, and he would marry Sarah, who was very beautiful. Vayishma Avram ki nishba achiv. Avram hears that his brother is captured. Vayorek es chanichav yilidei beis hashmona asar ushlosh meos vayirdof adon. He armed him. He arms them. He arms his 318 men, and they go and chase all the way until done. So he's chasing 4 armies who killed 5 armies. A world war. So he's now chasing the Axis. right? The Axis beat the Allies, and now he's chasing all the Axis armies with 318 men, which Chazal says is the same gematria as Eliezer, so it's just him and Eliezer. 2 men against a world, a major force. Now look at the Torah's description of the war. He deployed his servants at night, and he struck them. That's it. That's the whole war. Avraham chased them, defeated them. No details of the war. Nothing about these new missiles that what do you call that Russia's trying out? All the missiles. Nothing about. Come on, a little action here. It's like almost well, there's a big war, and Avraham chased them, and he defeated them, and he came back. That's it. The Torah does not tell us unnecessary details. We'll see in a second. So first lesson you have here, the Mepharshim say, what's going on here? Who was the catalyst of the war? It was this man Nimrod, who we've met before. Okay, we'll get to him in a second. What was the central theme of the war? What was the central theme of the war? The Jews. And somehow the Jews were involved, right? They captured Sodom, they took Lot, draw Avraham Avinu in. It's almost like, how did the Jews get into this? Like they say the story, the Jews, during World War II, Jews walking on the streets, and these 4 Nazi soldiers surround him. They say, Jew, who's responsible for the war? So the little Jew, he looks up, he goes, he's not stupid. He looks up, well, the Jews and the bicycle riders. So they look at the bicycle. Why the bicycle riders? He says, why the Jews? Somehow the Jews are there. Somehow the Jews got involved. How did the Jews get involved here? The answer is everything that happens in the world is because of the Jews. Everything that happens. If there's a tsunami in Indonesia, it's because of the Jews. That's what the Gemara says. And you see that the first famine that was here, there's an entire famine in the land of Canaan. Why? To get one Jew to go down to Mitzrayim. One Jew, he has to go. So there's a whole famine over here. Everything because of the Jews. It all surrounds the Jews. It's a little deeper than that. Remember he pointed out earlier when Avraham Avinu said to Lot, we're brothers. So what did Rashi say? What was one of the ideas behind them being brothers? Rashi said that they're relatives. But then Rashi pointed out what sounds like an insignificant fact, which is what? Remember what Rashi said earlier? They look alike. What are we? We're putting out GQ over here? What do we need to know who looked like who over here? Oh, people have always told me I look like Tom Brady. I personally don't see it, but that's what people say. What can I do? People, hey, are you related to Tom Brady? Yeah, somehow I don't see it. But okay, so all of a sudden they looked alike. Since when does the Torah tell who look alike? It doesn't even tell us the details of a world war. Why are you telling me they looked alike? So a friend of mine, Rabbi Yaakov Minkus, Givaldic shot here. So what's really going on over here is, first of all, how did Avraham Avinu fight this war? With 2 men. Okay, 318 according to the Parsha shot. You're still talking about a ridiculous war. So the Gemara says there was a man named Nachum Ish Gamzu. Do you remember Nachum Ish Gamzu? Yeah. What happened to Nachum? That's where we get the expression Gamzu Latova. Yeah, whatever happens, it's for the best. You're stuck in traffic, Gamzu Latova. You pull out a gun and shoot someone out of road rage, Gamzu Latova. Next time, don't cut me off, buddy. No, you're not supposed to do that. What is Gamzu Latova? Gamzu Latova means that if something negative happens, a person says this is for the best. It doesn't mean it doesn't hurt, by the way. It doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. It just means that it's not wasted. It takes a little of the sting out of it. Knowing that this is part of Hashem's plan, as annoying and frustrating as it might be the situation would be, Gamzu Latova simply gets me to the state where at least it's not wasted. If we open that door, it is open, unfortunately. It's not wasted. That's what Gamzu Latova. So Nachum Ish Gamzu was sent. The Gemara says he had to go. The Jews sent him to bring a box full of. I don't think we need it right. I think we're good right now. We'll see. He sends a box of gems to the king, and he stayed at an inn overnight. And the people at the inn took the box, they saw what was in it, and they replaced it with dirt. And when Nachum Ish Gamzu got up in the morning, he saw it was replaced with dirt. He said, Gamzu Latova. It's all for the best. And he gets to the king, and he presents it to the king, and the king says, the Jews are laughing at me, let's execute this guy. And Eliyahu Navi comes along, pay attention carefully. Eliyahu Navi comes along incognito, and he says, maybe that's the dirt that their ancestor Avraham used when he fought Nimrod's armies. Because the Medrash says he took the dirt and threw it, and it turned into arrows and bows, spears and bows. That's what killed the enemy. So the king tries it. The Gemara says the king tried it, and he threw it, and he what do you call it? He went out. The king. There was one enemy that the king had that they had been constantly going at it with, and they could never defeat him. And they went out and they tried it. I don't know which soldiers were volunteered to get. Hey guys, go up to the front and throw dirt at them. Well, you're the guys who were going to try this with. And apparently it worked, and the king was very pleased. So he filled the box with gems and sent Nachum back. He filled it with treasures. He said, "Thank you very much," and he sent them back to the Jews. And when he got to the inn, the people at the inn were kind of surprised to see him back. You know, when you give dirt to the king, we don't expect to see you on the flip-flop. And he comes back, and they said, what happened over there? He says, well, but I took from here. That's what I gave the king. He was very pleased. So they took and they brought filled boxes with dirt and went to the king, and the king tried it, and it didn't work. So they killed all of them. That was the end of the story. Gamzu Latova. Okay, that's where the expression Gamzu Latova comes from. Okay, so if a person in life, you should know that if you're ever in a situation where something's frustrating you, just remind yourself, Gamzu Latova. Gamzu Latova. Don't remind other people. It's only for yourself. If you bend down to pick up your pen and you smack your head on the table, so you say, Gamzu Latova. That's an expression we try to remember to use. Oh, I'm missing my wallet. Oh, it's lost. Gamzu Latova. Right? But if somebody else smacks his head on the table, you say, oh, you say, Gamzu Latova, right? Because then he'll hit you over the head with a chair and say, Gamzu Latova, right? Then you have a Gamzu Latova fight, right? So Gamzu Latova is not meant to be an offensive weapon, right? Gamzu Latova is a way of reminding, is being philosophers for ourselves. Don't be a philosopher at somebody else's expense. Okay. So Avraham Avinu fought this war with the dirt. So what's really going on? The answer is, at a much deeper level, Nimrod and Avraham Avinu went at it once before. Where was that? Where did they go at it the first time? Where Kazdim, by the flame, by the furnace. Nimrod's idols versus Avraham Avinu's God. Who won round one? Avraham Avinu. There's a God that overrides nature. You're stuck in nature with your idols, Teva. We have a God that overrides Teva. See, I walked out of the furnace. Round one to Avraham Avinu. Nimrod's going to come back. And he wages an entire world war for one purpose. One purpose. For what? V'gam vayichu es lot ve'es rechusho. The whole point of everything here is to capture Lot. Why does he want to capture Lot? Because now he could parade Lot around in a cage and tell everybody, who did I capture? Avraham Avinu. Why? Because it said earlier, they look alike. And who's to say otherwise? Who's to say otherwise? Oh, that's not Avraham Avinu. They didn't have they didn't have internet in those days. Nobody could shoot up, put pictures up there on the thing of who he really is and how, oh, we've captured Avraham Avinu. At that point, Avraham Avinu, why does Avraham Avinu get into a war over here? At that point, Avraham says, God's honor is at risk now. I can't make any cap. When you go to a war, you're not allowed to commit suicide to save somebody else. There's a halacha. If somebody's drowning and you know that you're going to dive into the water and save him, but you're going to die, you're not allowed to according to halacha. You could only try to save somebody if there's a chance you'll survive. But if you're going to die, you're not allowed. In the Holocaust, this was a question that came up to post-skim. His son is on the list to be shot the next day. Is the father allowed to switch places with his son? He could bribe the guard and he'll say, switch places. And the halacha is, no, you can't. You can't give up your life for somebody else. Now, we're not talking about what a person would do. There isn't a father in the world who wouldn't. We're talking about what a person should do. And you're not allowed to. Avraham Avinu can't go into a suicidal war, which this is what it is. Why is he allowed to enter into a war with two people against an army? Because God's honor is at stake. There's a chilul Hashem now. For chilul Hashem, everything goes off. For chilul Hashem, you got to give up your life. You're not allowed to bow down to the idols. You got to give up your life. There's a tremendous chilul Hashem right now. Nimrod's parading around with a captured Avraham Avinu. So Avraham Avinu, not only he gets involved in the war, but again, how does he fight the war? Beyond nature. Take some dirt and throw it. The whole theme here is my God against your idols. In round two, also goes to Avraham Avinu. That's what's going on in this war, and that's why he goes to bat for Lot, and he brings Lot home, and he saves Lot. Okay? That is, and then he has the whole conversation with the king. I'm not going to go into that right now. let's go on. After this, Hashem says to Avraham Avinu, page 70. Now over here, you have a very intriguing section. That's why I want to go through this pasuk by pasuk, because this is very, very not understood. V'Sarai Eishes Avram lo yolda lo. Sarai did not have a child. 4 lines from the top. V'lo shifcha mitzri shema Hagar. She's got an Egyptian maidservant named Hagar, who Rashi told us earlier, when Paro had originally taken Sarah and he saw what happened at the miracles, he said, better my daughter. She was Paro's daughter. He probably had a lot of daughters because he had a lot of wives. He said, better my princess should be a servant in his house than she should be a princess in Egypt. Because he saw what a magnificent couple this was. So she's got this maidservant. Vatomer Sarai al Avram, hine no atzarani Hashem el Hashem has stopped me from giving birth. Bona el shifchasi ulai ibana mimena. Marry my maidservant. Perhaps I will become built up because of her. Vayishma Avram lekol Sarai. So Avram obeys Sarai. Now look at what Rashi says over here. Rashi points out lekol Sarai. Where's the Rashi? Can't find it.
Like 6 lines from the bottom.
Yeah, lekol Sarai, leruach hakodesh sheba. Avram obeys the ruach hakodesh. Sarai was on a higher level of ruach hakodesh than Avram Avinu. And what do you call it? The she's telling Avraham Avinu, I want you to go marry this maidservant, this Egyptian maidservant. Like, Avram kept the whole Torah. What's up? What are the halacha? I mean, I don't want to contaminate myself with an Egyptian. What? Ruach HaKodesh. Obey Sarah's Ruach HaKodesh. My mother, she should live with me well. She always used to point out to the sea, the women have the Ruach HaKodesh. My mother always said, see, you got to listen to the women. This is particularly apropos because my wife's first name is Sarah. So my wife was always pointing this out. You got to listen to her. I said, Mom, the Torah points out the exceptions. Didn't work. So what do you call Avram says, listen to the Ruach HaKodesh. Now, what's going on? What does Sarah want? What does Sarah want over here? So, number one, what is this guy? She says, well, you marry her, maybe I'll be built up as a result. What's it got to do with you? She'll have a child, won't have a child. What's it got to do with you? There are 2 approaches here. Approach number 1 is that Sarah is saying, look, I can't have children. I'll allow you to have a child. What about Avraham Avinu? You can have the child with her, and maybe the merit of my being willing to give you a child, in that merit, maybe I'll have a child also. At a play level. At a different level, Sarah Imenu is going through a tremendous agonizing test. I mean, they're married at this point. She's about 75, 80 years old. I forgot exactly how old. This maidservant is not more than 15 years old. In those days, they got married very young. And Avraham Avinu had other servants. He would have married her off. If she was ready to get married, he would have married her off. She's a young girl. She's obviously a young girl. And Sarah Imenu now has to share her husband. You know what kind of test, what kind of agony that is? But what does she want more than anything else? We're talking about people at a level that we can't comprehend. She knows that they're supposed to be a Jewish people. And she wants to be the mother of the Jewish people. She's saying to Avraham Avinu, maybe I can't be the physical mother. Let her produce the physical body. I'll be the spiritual mother. I'll instill the values. I'll raise the child. But we need the child to be able to raise. And Shema Ibana Mimena, I will be built up, because then when a child is meritorious, so whatever mitzvahs you do, gentlemen, is a merit for your parents. I'll be built up as a result of what this child does. That's what Sarah wants. So she gives Hagar, marries to what he called. So Avram marries Hagar. Vayovo el Hagar vatahar, she becomes pregnant. By the way, I've showed you in the past, the word vatahar, what's the root of the word vatahar? Har, what's a har? A mountain, right? That's what pregnancy is. A woman becomes kind of mountainous. You know, she comes out, you're laughing, huh? She comes out, the women never are amused by it. Vatereki arasa vatekel givirta beina. She sees she got pregnant, and she relates to Sarah a bit flippantly now. Hagar is a tremendous high level. There's commentaries that say that one of the reasons that Avraham Avinu was pushed down to Mitzrayim was to rescue this neshama, pull this neshama out of Mitzrayim. Hagar is at a very high level. We're not talking about some sleaze on the street. We're talking about somebody that Avraham Avinu was willing to live with. And Hagar looks at Sarah and she says, you know what? What was happening up until now? Same thing with Lot and Avraham Avinu. She was a disciple of Sarah. Sarah was instilling value in Hagar. She was teaching her. And all of a sudden the disciple feels, maybe she's not what she's cracked up to be. After all, I'm the one who got pregnant, not her. And I'm also on a high spiritual level. And therefore, Sarah starts to work her very hard. Make sure you know your place, girl. Make sure you know who you are. I'm the teacher, you're the servant. That's what the affliction. Sarah wasn't just afflicting her for the sake of getting her aggressions out. When the Torah says that Vayomer Avraham pasuk vav Vayomer Avraham el Sarai hinei shivches b'yodech asilach atov b'nech, do whatever you want to her, vateaneh Sarai vativrach mi. Sarah starts working her very hard, and so she runs away. Sarah wasn't just like whipping her and smacking her around. It was a way of showing her, you got the wrong approach. I'm still the one who sets the tone, the spiritual tone for the Jewish people, for the entire household here. And you're going to have to accept that fact. And therefore, you're talking about Sarah Meinu had Ruach HaKodesh. People with Ruach HaKodesh don't go around tormenting people. Torah says she had Ruach HaKodesh. So it's not somebody who's vindictive and is just looking to cause somebody pain because he's jealous. It's because there's a goal over here. By you taking me lightly, you are interfering with what I'm trying to accomplish here. I got to put you back in your place. So she goes running out to the desert. And look what happens, gentlemen. Did you pay attention to this? An angel comes over. Honestly, gentlemen, what would your reaction be if you were out on a tiul and suddenly an angel came to you? Oh, baby. Right? Oh, baby. At a minimum, you'd be saying, oh, baby. Right? More likely, you'd faint. Right? And in most likelihood, you try to get different form of ecstasy, because obviously that's what's happened. Right? But assuming you knew for a fact that it was an angel, a malach, you'd be angel dust. Yeah, you'd be fainting. You'd pass out. And look what they say. Oh, then malach says, "Hey, what's happening, Hagar?" It doesn't say that she got nervous. Says, oh, vatomer b'dei Sarai gevirte, and I'm running away from Sarai. Just like that. That's an indication of kind of level she's on. We never find a malach speaking to Rivka. We never find a malach speaking directly to Sarah. She hears the malach. She doesn't know they're malachim. The mother, the matriarchs, we never had malachim speaking to them. Rachel, Leah, there's never an indication of malach speaking to them. And here's a woman, Hagar, an Egyptian, and the malach, that's an indication of who this lady is. Vayomer la malach Hashem, shuvi al gevirtech v'isani tachas yedeh. Go back and get afflicted. I mean, that's your place. That's your role. You have to realize who you are. You're good, but she's better. Go back. You're secondary. Go back. Vayomer la malach Hashem, but don't worry. Harba arba ezarech v'lo yisef ermach. You're going to have a tremendous amount of offspring. A second malach. Now a third malach. Vayomer la malach Hashem. Each time it says Vayomer is a different malach. And she's like, oh, okay. It's like being an Ohr Somayach and meeting a new guy. One after it's coming in. Vayomer la malach Hashem. Hinachar, you're going to get pregnant v'yaladet ben, and you're going to have a son. V'karas shemo Yishmael. You're going to name him Yishmael. Ki shama Hashem elonech. Hashem has heard your affliction. The Medrash says, you know why he's called Ishmael? What the Medrash says? Because his descendants in the end of days are going to torment the Jewish people. The Jewish people are going to call out to Hashem in tefillah. V'yishma kel, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will listen. The name Ishmael is an indication of what we're going to do when tormented by the descendants of Ishmael, whoever they may be. And we know who they may be, right? And whoever, not only we know who they may be, we know who they be, right? And when the descendants of Yishmael start tormenting, we're going to call out to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to hear our tefillah. That's going to bring the Yeshua. That's what the Medrash says in Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer.
It's going to bring what?
The ultimate redemption. But what is this guy going to mean? Now, here is one of the most enchanting psukim in the Torah. If this doesn't give you the goosebumps, nothing will, except an open window. V'hu para adam, he will be a para adam. How does the Art Scroll translate it? A wild man. Yeah. V'hu para adam, he will be a wild man. Yado v'akol v'yad kol bo. His hand will be on everybody, and everybody, that word means a donkey, by the way. That word also means donkey. We're hesitant to say it because we're hesitant to say it, but that's what it means. It's got a double meaning. It means donkey and it means other things. So it says, Hu yeper adam yodo bakol v'yad kobo. His hand will be on everybody, and everybody's hand will be on him. Ve'al pnei kol echav yishkon, he's going to dwell among all his brothers. There's going to be masses of them. Now, if you take a look at Rashi, I want to show you something enchanting before we get on to even something even more enchanting. Rashi says, Yodo bakol, left column of Rashi, on page 70, left column, bottom line, left column. If you find it, please show the person next to you. Yodo bakol, listim. It could be a bandit. There's a certain culture among the descendants of Ishmael. They don't have this hesitation of stealing, which is why when the Medrash says when God offered the Torah to the children of Ishmael, they said, what does it say? So the sons of Esau says don't murder, but at the sons of Ishmael it says don't steal. I can't have a Torah like that. No, that's part of their culture. Part of culture. And by the way, part of their culture is if they do steal from you, you're the guy. It's your fault. Why'd you let them steal? Right? You got taken. It's your fault. Right? What do they call it in Hebrew? You're a friar. That's what they call it in Hebrew. You're a friar for letting me steal from you. Right? That's what Rashi says. Kol yodo ba kol they're steal v'yad kol bo hakol sonim oso. Everybody hates him. Right? That's what Rashi says. Take a look at Targum Onkelos. Targum Onkelos on page 70. 3 lines from the bottom in Onkelos. Watch this. If you find it, please show the person. I want everybody to see this inside. In Onkelos, Targum Onkelos, 3 lines from the bottom. V'hu yehei morod be'enosha. He will be the rebellious one among mankind. In other words, Rav Hirsch expounds on this. Perada means he doesn't obey normal societal rules. This is what the Americans could never get straight on the Middle East conflict. They just assume everybody plays by democratic rules. So when you have Yasser Arafat, he should rest in pieces, and he goes to the White House. He goes to the White House and with Bill Clinton and what's his name, and they offer him 99% of what he was asking for, and he says no. I didn't understand. So if I would have been in the room with Clinton, I would have just said, could you please tell me, before I offer anything, tell me exactly what you want. What do you want? You want 100%, which is that the Jews should leave Israel. That's what you really want. Right? They don't negotiate. They don't obey. Now Rav Hirsch says this talks about the nomads, like the Bedouins who'd go. They don't live in cities. They just go from place to place, or wherever he happen to what he called to squat and build tents and whatever it is. They don't obey what we would call European laws, right? Where you have cities and you have rules and you negotiate and you have democracy, however the world runs. But watch this. Hu yehei tzorich lechola. He will need everyone. Vida dechol b'nei Yasha yontzir, and everybody's going to need him. What does that sound like? I'd say so. Oil. He will need everyone, and everyone will need him. Right? Everybody needs it. That's what it certainly sounds like it. What do we need the Arabians for? What do they got? They got the oil. What do they need? Everything. Right? They got nothing except oil and sand. And kafiyas. That's what they've got, right? But he needs everybody, and everybody needs him. That's what he says. He will pera adam. He will be now. The article says pera adam is a wild man. By the way, in the vernacular, when a kid is out of control, somebody who's really wild, and even Hebrews say, "What a pera adam." Right? What a wild guy he is. Right? That's the bottom line up now. I want to show you something. Watch this. In English, what comes first, the noun or the adjective? The noun. A nice man, a good man, a big man, right? The noun comes first. In Hebrew, what comes first? The adjective comes first. No, in Hebrew, the noun comes first. In English,
The adjective comes first.
the adjective comes before it. What did I say? I said the opposite?
The noun.
Okay, I must have gotten confused. What do you call it? I deny it. No, it's on film. I can't deny it. What do you call it? In English, the adjective comes before the noun. Nice man, big man, good man. In Hebrew, it's the opposite. The noun comes first. Adam yafeh, Adam gadol, Adam nachmad, right? The noun comes before the adjective. If you want to say somebody's a wild man, what would you say? You'd say Adam Pera. So why does the Torah reverse it? Pera Adam. The answer is it's not reversed. It's not reversed. The noun is Pera. He is a wild. That's what he is. What kind of wild? Well, a human. Whoa. He's got 2 ears, a nose. Yeah, he looks like us. But ultimately, what is he? He's a Pera. That's what he is. He only merited to be called Adam because he had a bris milah, he did tshuva, the Ishmael did at the end. But as a nation, what are they in the essence? Is look at that. It's out of control. It's out of control. It's savagery. It's complete. It's ridiculous. But it happens to be human beings. He could have been a para giraffe, right? He could have been a para llama, right? He could have been a para tiger. No, he happens to be a para adam. But the para is the noun. That's what Rav Hirsch says. Isn't that remarkable? Isn't that remarkable? Because otherwise it doesn't make sense. Well, he should be called an adam para, not a para adam. That's what Rav Hirsch says. That is the description of the essence of Ishmael, which unfortunately anybody who thinks otherwise is what he called. We realize that this is not. It's timeless. It's absolutely timeless. Okay, on page 72, the Torah says, "Vayi Avraham ben Tishim Detesha Shanim," 6 lines from the top. Vayira Hashem el Avram vayomer elav ani kel shakai hislach lefanai veheyei samim. Walk before me and be perfect. And what this means is the command of the Torah to perform bris milah, the second mitzvah in the Torah. Bris milah. Let's try to understand what a bris milah is. It's so fundamental. It's one of 2 positive commands. One of 2 positive commands where failure to fulfill this positive command is the kares penalty. That means for negative commands, there are many kareses. Violating Shabbos, eating on Yom Kippur, various forms of immorality, eating chaylev. There are a lot of averas that kares means premature death. The simplest explanation of kares is premature death. There are many prohibitions where somebody who violates the prohibition, the punishment is kares. There are only 2 positive commands. If a person doesn't put on tefillin, it's not kares. If a person doesn't take a lulav and esrog, it's not kares. If a person doesn't put up a mezuzah, it's not kares. But if a person fails to have a bris milah, that means the father has to have his son circumcised. If the father doesn't have the son, let's say there is no father, say father's nifter, whatever the case is, then the son, when he turns 13, is responsible to get himself circumcised. Beis Din has to circumcise, whatever it is. And failure to do so invokes the kares penalty. That's one. Anybody know what the second one is? Korban Pesach. You have to eat the Korban Pesach at the time of the Beis Hamikdash when they brought the Pesach said you had to eat the Korban Pesach by midnight. And if you didn't eat the Korban Pesach by midnight intentionally, and you were available, it was available. You weren't tamei, you weren't far away. It was available, and you neglected to eat the Korban Pesach by midnight. You get kares. Not only that, you have 2 people sitting at a Pesach Seder. You got one guy who's about to takes the roast lamb, and he like, wow, roast lamb, yeah, right? And he kind of loads it up into his matzah, which is soft and looks like a laufa, and steps in some maror over there. yeah. And he goes, it looks exactly like a shawarma. And he goes after his korban pesach, and the last thing he's thinking about is fulfilling Hashem's command. Then you got a second guy who goes to the mikveh, and he's mechavein all the yichudim, and he even puts on tchelos for the occasion, and he's mamisha, and he's got every kavana that the Arizal could have come up with in the siddur, and he eats his korban pesach. The first guy ate it at 1 minute to midnight, 1 minute to chatzos. The second guy with all the kavanas ate it 1 minute after chatzos. The first guy fulfilled the mitzvah. The second guy's chayv kares. How do you like that? For failure, he missed it by a minute. Next time, don't have so much kavana, right? Do the mitzvah. Do the mitzvah. Leave your kavana. Check your kavana at the door. Do the mitzvah. You should have kavana, but not mess up and get chayiv kares as a result. Bris milah and korban pesach. Those are the what do you go. By the way, that's one of the prerequisites. You notice that the prerequisite for eating the korban pesach is that person have to be circumcised. Somebody who did not have a bris milah, let's say his brother had died because of he didn't have a bris milah for whatever reason, he doesn't eat the korban pesach. That's a link between the korban pesach and the bris milah. So Hashem says to Avinu, you're going to have a bris milah. When is the bris milah done? on the 8th day. What's the idea? What's the idea of a bris milah? There's several ideas. Idea number one is that the perfection of a Jew takes place through pain. In the Israeli army, if you've had a bris milah, you could only get a 97. You lose 3 points on your profile in the Israeli army. You lose 3 points in the Israeli army, which is obviously not Torah observant, and it's not based on Torah values. You lose 3 points for having a bris milah. So a Jewish soldier who's had bris milah could only get a 97 on the profile. The Druze, Arabs who do not circumcise, could get 100. The Torah says that's the opposite. We are created with a flaw. And that flaw is the foreskin that has to be removed. That's the bris milah. The bris milah is the perfection of the Jew. There's pain in that area, which is A, is a reminder that we perfect ourselves through pain. B, it's a reminder to us that that area of life, which is so dominant, has to be controlled. That's the kedusha of the Jewish people, is that area of life. That we are not just animals running around unleashing every passion. The Jewish people in this area, that's the kedusha of Klal Yisrael. The kedusha of Klal Yisrael is the area of morality. That's what the bris milah is. Mechanically, by the way, I've never watched it because I would probably pass out at a bris milah if you ever watch a bris milah. But there's you have a mohel who comes in, and he removes the foreskin, and he's got a protective shield, and what do you call it? I can't watch it. I can't watch it. Even when I've held the babies, I've been the sandik at a bris, and I close my eyes as soon as he puts them, even before the diaper's off. I just tell the mohel, tell me when it's over. Right, I hold the baby like that, and I don't take any chances. You know, I don't want to hear any. I don't want to see anything. But other people, there's no problem watching. We had a guy who was here at Ohr Somayach. This is pretty amusing. There was a bris, and the mohel was a friend of mine from the neighborhood. He's a rav from the neighborhood, and he was the mohel. There was a guy here at Ohr Somayach who was pre-med, and he was doing volunteer work in a New York City emergency room, where you see all sorts of good things. And they did the bris, and this guy who was in pre-med and working there, he passed out at the bris. Really? So I said to him afterwards, what happened? So he goes, well, I just was a little lightheaded, and there was more blood than I expected to see. So I spoke to my friend the mohel. I said, by the way, the guy who passed out is a pre-med. So he started laughing. It was so funny. He said, well, actually, when I came home today from the bris, my wife asked me if everything was okay. I said, why? He said, well, I had some blood on my collar. And what happened was, once in a while, you get like a spurter, like a geyser. It's not dangerous or anything. It just happens to be that it's a little bit more action packed, right? And this, he said, so he was laughing. He said, yeah, this one was actually spurting out, so I could see where the guy got queasy, that sort of thing. But in any event, that's what the perfection of the Jew. Yeah, I'm moving on. Yeah. Sorry. Sorry. Lunchtime. It's the perfection of the Jew. But I want to explain what's really going on here. Listen, it's a very incredible idea. Imagine the following, and obviously we go to reality as an example, which is sports. Sports is the only thing that's reality. Even war is not reality because it says Lev Melech B'yad Hashem. Hashem controls the hearts of kings. The only thing where there's free choice is sports. So how do you like that? Sure, that was good, yeah? It's so inane and trivial that Hashem doesn't get involved. How do you like that? So, presidents, we can't allow presidents to just do what they want. Hashem's got to control them, otherwise you get a lot of trouble. Sports, go ahead. Okay. So, chas v'shalom, sports is important. What do you call it? So imagine the following. Take any sport, whether it's baseball, whether it's the World Cup, whatever country you come from. If I would ask you at the beginning of the season or the beginning of the NCAA tournament, it doesn't matter. Let's go to the football season. You could pick one team to win the Super Bowl, and I get the field. Which is a safer bet? In every sport, there are too many things, too many risks. Somebody could get hurt. There could be an upset in the playoffs. Too many things could happen to put all your money on one team. Except the Bulls in the 90s when Jordan was playing. Any other bet is not safe. Right there, you bet on the Bulls because you know they're going to win. right? When they won those 14 championships in the 90s. So what do you call it? So you're always safe for betting on the field. Now, let's say you're Avraham Avinu, and you get a prophecy right now. This is who the Jewish people are going to have to overcome. The Egyptians, the Babylonians, the Persians, the Greeks, the Romans, the Crusades, the Spanish Inquisition, the Khmelnytsky massacres, the Holocaust. Who would you bet on? Would you bet on the Jews or you bet on the field? I definitely bet on the field. If your prophecy at time of Avraham Avinu shows you what's going to happen, I would bet on the field. No question about it, because the Jews don't stand a chance. So why are we still here?
Above nature.
We're above nature. What's the symbol that we're above nature? The bris milah on the 8th day. Yeah. The number 8 is beyond nature. The bris milah obviously in the area of reproduction, which symbolizes the future of the Jewish people. Hashem is telling Avraham Avinu, your survival is going to be, I'm telling you, you're going to have offspring. And Avraham Avinu like, offspring, how are you going to possibly survive? Your survival, the symbol of the survival is the bris milah, because it transcends nature. If the Jewish people are left to nature, like World War II, where German Jewry told Hashem to step out of the picture, we're not interested in God in our life. And God says, all right, it's not a good idea, fellas, but okay. So God steps out of the picture and leaves the world to nature. Well, when you have one sheep surrounded by 70 wolves, and you leave it to nature, guess what's going to happen? That's bad for the sheep. When the shepherd is there, he could chase away the wolves. The survival of the Jewish people has been beyond, it doesn't make any sense. There's no logical reason. If you were Avraham Avinu at the time, you would have bet on the field until HaKadosh Baruch Hu shows you that you're going to survive, because it's going to be L'mala min hateva. That's what the bris milah is. The bris milah is the reminder that we survive L'mala min hateva. Anybody, by the way, who may not have had a bris has to be done by a Shomer Shabbos Moel, and it's got to be done on the 8th day or later. If anybody has any question whether they've had a legitimate bris milah, so it has to be discussed, and then they go through they draw out a little bit of blood, what's called hatafas dam bris. In a normal situation, the bris is on the 8th day, unless there's any sort of health issue with the babies. The most common health issues are the baby's yellow. The bilirubin count is too high. They put the babies under lights in the hospital. They put them under lights, which somehow, I'm not sure exactly what it does, but most of the time, most brises are on time. Most brises are on time. Once in a while, a bris is postponed. And by the way, a bris can be done on Shabbos. The Torah says openly, even though elective surgeries cannot be done on Shabbos, this is an electric surgery which overrides Shabbos. Many brises happen on Shabbos. If you ever heard of a baby named Shabtai, a boy named Shabtai, often the name Shabtai from Shabbos is somebody probably who's had a bris on Shabbos. Not necessarily, but sometimes they have a bris. My grandson just had a bris on Rosh Hashanah. He's had a bris on Rosh Hashanah. I've been at Yom Kippur brises. A bris overrides all things, but only if it's on time. Once the bris is put off because of any problem, and by the way, there have been brises that have been called at the last minute. If a baby gets an eye infection, which is also very common, right? The mole will come in at the bris and take one look at the baby, and tables could be set, and the guests are ready, and he takes one look at the baby and says, sorry, there's no bris. Sometimes the baby is what's called shriveled. When the baby he's shriveled. I remember my second son looked shriveled. It looked like he was about 94. And what do you call it? I remember the mole came in, and he took a look and said, it's fine. And I said, isn't this considered shriveled? Yeah, I don't know. He said, the halacha. The mole said, this isn't shriveled. True. I said, what's shriveled? He said, it looks like a prune. He said, that's true. But the moles are experts. The moles have expert training, and they know medically. They know all the everything. And if there's any risk whatsoever to the baby, they put off the bris indefinitely until the baby has fever, an infection, or anything else. The baby needs, the body has to be strengthened to fight off the what do you call it. And in spite of all that, the bris has done something which the Gemara says, to this day we do it b'simcha. The Jewish people accepted it b'simcha, we do it b'simcha. Marriage, which the Jewish people had an issue with when they put certain restrictions on relatives, and the Jewish people were complaining in the desert. So Gemara says that's why weddings always involve a little bit of, there says, Lecha ksuba de lorem betigra. There's no wedding, a ksuba. The ksuba is the marriage. There's no ksuba that doesn't involve a little bit of conflict between the sides. right? Because the Jewish people were a bit griped a little bit about marriage, so marriage always involves a little aggravation. It's always a little aggravation, usually the other side. But the marriage involves aggravation, whereas bris milah we do to this day b'simcha. Bris is always a simcha, except for the baby. The bris is a simcha. All right, TBC.